The stars looked different here. Commander Jake Sullivan stared through the main window of the Aurora as his ship moved slowly through space. For 3 months, they had been following strange energy signals that Earth scientists could not explain. The signals came from this part of space, far from any known planets or stars. "Commander, we're getting something big on the sensors," said Lisa Martinez from the pilot's seat. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. "It's a planet, sir, and it's giving off those energy signals we've been tracking." Jake walked over to look at her screen. The planet was blue and green, with white clouds moving across its surface. It looked almost like Earth, but the energy readings were unlike anything they had ever seen. "How far away are we?" Jake asked. "About 6 hours at current speed," Lisa replied. "Should I take us closer?" Jake nodded. "Yes, but go slow." "We don't know what we're dealing with here." The Aurora had 12 people on board. Besides Jake and Lisa, there was Kevin Brooks, who kept all their machines working, and Dr. Amy Carter, who studied alien life forms. The rest of the crew handled different jobs like communications, weapons, and supplies. As they got closer to the planet, the energy readings became stronger. Dr. Carter called Jake to the science lab. "Look at this," Amy said, pointing at her computer screen. "The energy isn't coming from machines. It's coming from living things." "Living things?" Jake asked. "You mean there are people down there?" "Not people like us," Amy said. "But yes, intelligent. Life. The energy patterns are too organized to be natural. Someone is controlling them." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all the years humans had been traveling through space, they had never found another intelligent species. This could change everything. "Kevin," Jake called over the ship's communication system, "get our landing shuttle ready. We're going down to take a look." "Are you sure that's wise, sir?" Kevin's voice came back through the speakers. "We don't know if they're friendly. We'll be careful," Jake said. "But this is why we're out here, to find new life and make contact." 4 hours later, Jake, Amy, Lisa, and Kevin sat in the small shuttle as it flew through the planet's atmosphere. The air was clean and breathable, which was good news. Through the shuttle windows, they could see a beautiful world covered in forests and rivers. "There," Amy pointed ahead. "I'm seeing structures. Buildings, I think." The buildings were tall and white, reaching up toward the sky like crystal trees. They seemed to glow with a soft light, and Jake could see people moving around them. But these people were not human. "They're tall," Lisa said softly, "and they look like they're made of glass." The beings below were indeed tall, at least 7 feet high. Their skin seemed to be made of crystal that caught and reflected the light. They moved with grace, like dancers, and Jake could see that they were watching the shuttle come down. "Find a place to land," Jake told Lisa. "Somewhere open where they can see us clearly." Lisa brought the shuttle down in a large field near the crystal buildings. As soon as they landed, hundreds of the crystal beings gathered around the shuttle, but they kept their distance. They did not seem afraid, just curious. "Here goes nothing," Jake said, and opened the shuttle door. The first thing Jake noticed was how quiet everything was. Not silent, but peaceful. The crystal beings made no sound. As they moved, and even the wind seemed to whisper rather than blow, one of the beings stepped forward. It was taller than the others, with crystal skin that showed more colors when the light hit it. When it spoke, Jake was surprised to hear words he could understand. "Welcome, travelers from the void," the being said. Its voice was like music. "I am Counselor Zareth. We have been watching your vessel approach our world." "You speak our language," Jake said, amazed. "We speak all languages," Zareth replied. "When minds touch, words become unnecessary. But you are different. Your minds are ... silent to us." Jake looked at Amy, who was taking notes on everything she saw. "Silent?" "Yes." Zareth said. We cannot hear your thoughts or feel your emotions. This is new to us. All life we have known shares the connection of mind to mind. You are the first to come to us with minds that are closed. We're human, Jake said. From a planet called Earth. We don't have the ability to read minds. Several of the crystal beings stepped back when Jake said this. Zareth's expression changed, though it was hard to read emotions on a face made of crystal. You cannot share thoughts? Zareth asked. How do you know what others need? How do you work together? How do you prevent conflict? We talk, Jake said simply. We use words and actions to communicate. But words can lie, another crystal being said. This one was older, with darker crystal skin. Actions can deceive. Without the connection of minds, how do you trust? Jake realized this was going to be more complicated than he had thought. We learn to trust through experience, through keeping our promises and being honest. The older being, who Zareth introduced as Elder Kiran, looked troubled. You speak of promises and honesty as if they are choices. In a connected mind, there can be no lies. Truth flows freely between all. Over the next several hours, Jake and his team learned more about the Velari, as the crystal beings called themselves. Their entire society was built on shared thoughts and emotions. They could feel what others felt and know what others knew. This made them peaceful and cooperative. But it also made them afraid of anything that might disrupt their harmony. Dr. Carter was fascinated by their technology. The Velari had machines that responded to thought rather than touch. Their buildings grew from the ground using mental energy. Everything in their world was connected through the same psychic network that linked their minds. It's beautiful, Amy told Jake privately. They've created a perfect society. No crime, no war, no suffering. Everyone works together because they all share the same goals. But Jake was starting to worry. The more the Velari learned about humans, the more concerned they seemed to become. When Kevin showed them a simple human tool, a hammer, they were upset by its potential for violence. When Lisa mentioned that humans sometimes disagreed with each other, they looked frightened. Your species fights among itself? Elder Kieran asked during their evening meal. Mind against mind? Sometimes, Jake admitted. But we also help each other. We work together to solve problems and build things. But if you cannot share thoughts, how do you know your companions will not betray you? Kieran pressed. How do you know they tell truth when they speak? Jake looked around at his crew. Kevin was trying to understand a Velari eating utensil that seemed to work by thinking at it. Lisa was having a conversation with a young Velari about different types of flying. Amy was deep in discussion with several Velari scientists about their biotechnology. We don't know for certain, Jake said finally. We have to choose to trust. And sometimes that trust is broken. But most of the time, it works out. Elder Kieran's crystal face showed what Jake was learning to recognize as worry. Choice, she said softly. You speak of choice as if it is. Good, but choice leads to chaos. Choice leads to conflict. Choice also leads to growth, Jake replied, to new ideas and better solutions. The elder stood up suddenly, her crystal skin darker than before. I must speak with the council, she said, and walked away quickly. Jake watched her go, feeling that something important had just happened. He looked back at Zareth, who was also watching the elder leave. Did I say something wrong? Jake asked. Zareth was quiet for a long moment. Elder Kieran has lived for many cycles. She remembers the old teachings, the warnings about beings who think alone instead of together. Warnings? Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Perhaps it is nothing, Zareth said, but her voice did not sound convinced. We should rest now. Tomorrow we will continue our discussions. As Jake and his team returned to their shuttle for the night, he could not shake the feeling that something had changed. The Velari were still polite and helpful, but there was something different in the way they looked at the humans now. Something that made Jake think of the way people looked at a dangerous animal they had not yet decided to attack. "Commander," Amy said quietly as they settled in for the night, "I think we need to be very careful here. I'm starting to get the feeling that they see us as more than just visitors." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. Amy looked out the shuttle window at the glowing crystal city. "I think they see us as a threat." The next morning brought strange looks from the Velari. Jake noticed it first when they left their shuttle. The crystal beings who had seemed curious and friendly yesterday now watched the humans with what looked like fear. They still spoke politely, but they kept more distance than before. "Something has changed," Lisa whispered to Jake as they walked toward the main building where Counselor Zareth waited for them. Jake nodded. He had seen it too. The Velari moved differently around them. Now, like people walking near a sleeping predator, Zareth H. greeted them at the entrance to what she called the Hall of Knowledge. "Welcome, humans. Today, Dr. Carter, you may study our archives as you requested. The others may observe our daily activities." Amy's eyes lit up. She had been asking to see Velari historical records since they arrived. "Thank you. I'm very interested in learning about your past." "Our past shapes our present," Zareth said, and Jake thought he heard warning in her musical voice. "Perhaps you will understand us better after you see where we came from." The Hall of Knowledge was enormous. Crystal walls stretched up higher than Jake could see, covered with glowing symbols that shifted and changed as he watched. Amy gasped in wonder as Zareth led her to a section filled with what looked like floating books made of light. "These are our memories," Zareth explained. "Every important event in our history is stored here. Touch the symbols and they will share their knowledge with you." Amy reached out carefully and touched one of the glowing symbols. Her eyes went wide as information flowed into her mind. "This is incredible. I can see everything that happened. It's like being there." While Amy studied the archives, Jake, Lisa, and Kevin followed other Velari through their city. They watched the crystal beings work together on various tasks: building construction, food preparation, artistic creation. Everything was done by groups of Velari who shared thoughts and worked as one mind. "It's efficient," Kevin admitted as they watched a team of Velari builders grow a new structure from the ground using only their combined mental energy. "But it's also kind of scary. They all think exactly the same thoughts." "Not exactly the same," corrected a young Velari named Tiran, who had been assigned to guide them. "We share thoughts, but we each add our own understanding. Like instruments in music, playing the same song, but with different voices." "But what if someone disagrees?" Lisa asked. "What if someone wants to do something different?" Tiran looked confused. Why would someone want to be different? When minds are connected, we all want what is best for everyone. There is no need for different wants. Jake exchanged glances with Kevin. This was exactly what was starting to worry him about. The Velari. They seemed to have no concept of individual desires or personal goals. Meanwhile, in the Hall of Knowledge, Dr. Carter was making disturbing discoveries. As she touched more symbols and absorbed more Velari history, she began to see patterns. That made her stomach turn cold. The Velari had not always been alone on their world. Thousands of years ago, another species had lived on the same planet. These beings had been different from the Velari in important ways. They could not share thoughts. They acted as individuals rather than as a group. The Velari historical records called them the Silent Ones. Amy read deeper into the records, her heart beating faster as the story unfolded. The Silent Ones had seemed friendly at first. They had been curious about Velari culture and technology. But their presence had begun to disrupt Velari society in ways no one had expected. The Silent One's inability to share thoughts had made them unpredictable. They would make agreements and then change their minds. They would say one thing and do another. Their individual thinking created chaos in a society built on shared consciousness. Worse, their presence had begun to affect the Velari themselves. Young Velari, who spent time with the Silent Ones, started to have individual thoughts. They began to question the group decisions. Some even started to lie or keep secrets. The Velari had tried to accommodate the Silent Ones, but the damage to their society had grown worse. Wars had broken out for the first time in Velari history, as different groups developed different opinions about what to do. The peaceful, harmonious world had nearly destroyed itself. In the end, the Velari had been forced to make a terrible choice. They had used their combined psychic powers to drive the Silent Ones away from their world. Many Silent Ones had died in the process. Those who survived had fled to the stars, never to return. Amy sat back from the glowing records, her hands shaking. The description of the Silent Ones matched humans perfectly. Individual thinkers who could not share thoughts. Beings whose very presence disrupted psychic harmony. She looked around the Hall of Knowledge and saw Elder Kieran watching her from across the room. The old Velari's crystal face showed no emotion, but Amy could feel the weight of her stare. "You have learned about the Silent Ones," Kieran said, walking over to Amy's study area. "Yes," Amy said carefully. "It's a tragic story." "Tragic for whom?" Kieran asked. "For the Silent Ones who brought chaos to our peaceful world? Or for the Velari, who nearly lost everything because we tried to be kind to beings who could not understand harmony?" Amy chose her words carefully. "Both, I think. No one wanted the conflict that happened." Kieran was quiet for a long moment. Then she touched one of the glowing symbols, and new images appeared in the air between them. These showed the final days of the Silent Ones on the Velari world. Amy could see the fear and confusion on both sides as the situation fell apart. "The Silent Ones claimed they meant no harm," Kieran said softly. "They said they only wanted to learn and to be friends. But their very nature was poison to us. They could not help being what they were, and we could not survive what they were." "What happened to them after they left?" Amy asked. "We do not know," Kieran replied. "We hoped they found a world where their chaos could not hurt others. We hoped we would never see their kind again." The meaning was clear, and Amy felt ice in her veins. The Velari thought humans were the same as the Silent Ones, who had nearly destroyed their civilization. Meanwhile, Kevin was having his own problems. He had been trying to help repair a damaged Velari device that provided water to one of their gardens. The device worked by responding to psychic energy, but Kevin could not provide that kind of power. "Let me try connecting it to our shuttles." "Power source," Kevin suggested. "Maybe I can adapt the energy flow." The Velari technician Miran looked uncertain, but agreed to let Kevin try. Kevin carefully connected cables from the human shuttle to the Velari device, making sure to use proper adapters and safety measures. At first, everything seemed to work. The device began to function again, providing clean water to the garden. But then something went wrong. The connection between human and Velari technology created a feedback loop that Kevin had not expected. Energy surged back through the connection, overloading both systems. The Velari device exploded in a shower of crystal fragments, and the shuttle's power system shut down completely. Worse, the explosion had damaged something important, a memorial to Velari, ancestors that had stood in the garden for centuries. The Velari came running from all directions, their crystal faces showing shock and distress. The memorial had been more than just decoration. It had been a psychic focal point that helped connect the living Velari to the memories of their ancestors. "I'm sorry," Kevin said desperately as he surveyed the damage. "I didn't know it would do that. I was just trying to help." But the Velari were not listening to his apologies. They were gathering around the destroyed memorial, their crystal bodies glowing brighter as they shared their distress through their psychic connection. Counselor Zareth arrived quickly, her usual calm replaced by obvious upset. What happened? Here, Mirren explained about Kevin's attempt to repair the water device. As she spoke, Jake could see the Velari around them becoming more agitated. Their crystal bodies were glowing so brightly now that it hurt to look at them directly. It was an accident, Jake said firmly. Kevin was trying to help. He had no way of knowing about the memorial. Intent does not matter, Elder Kiran said, appearing beside Zarath like a dark shadow. Damage is damage. Chaos is chaos. The silent ones also claimed their destructive actions were accidents. Jake felt the situation slipping away from him. We're not the silent ones. We're different. Are you? Kiran asked. You think as individuals. You cannot share minds. You bring change and unpredictability wherever you go. Your companions' actions prove that your kind cannot exist alongside ours without causing destruction. The elder turned to address the gathered Velari, her voice carrying clearly across the garden. The ancient warnings were true. The silent ones have returned, wearing different faces but carrying the same chaos. We must not repeat the mistakes of our ancestors. What are you saying? Jake demanded. Kiran looked at him with what Jake now recognized as pity mixed with fear. I am saying that some friendships are too dangerous to maintain. Some visitors bring gifts that cost too much to accept. As the Velari began to disperse, Jake noticed that they were not returning to their normal activities. Instead, they were gathering in small groups, their crystal bodies pulsing with shared communication that the humans could not hear. Commander, Lisa said quietly, I think we're in trouble. That night, Jake could not sleep. He lay in his bunk inside the shuttle, listening to the strange sounds of the Velari world outside. The crystal beings made no noise when they walked, but their city hummed with psychic energy that somehow reached. Even human ears died around midnight. Lisa came to find him. Her face was tight with worry. Commander, I think you need to hear this, she whispered. Jake followed her to the shuttle's communications area. Lisa had been working on understanding how Velari technology functioned, trying to learn their systems, in case the humans needed to make repairs or modifications to their own equipment. I was trying to figure out how their thought communication works, Lisa explained quietly. I can't receive their messages, but I found a way to detect when they're sending them. And Jake, they've been talking all night. She showed him the readings on her screen. Waves of psychic communication were flowing between different parts of the city, much more intense than anything they had detected during the day. Can you tell what they're saying? Jake asked. No, but I can tell who they're talking to, Lisa replied. And Commander, they're not just talking to each other. They're talking to other Velari cities, all over the planet. Jake felt his stomach drop. They're telling everyone about us. That's not the worst part, Lisa continued. I've been tracking the communication patterns, and I think they're making some kind of plan. The signals are getting more organized, more focused, like they're preparing for something big. Before Jake could respond, Amy appeared in the doorway. She had been unable to sleep as well, and she looked exhausted. I need to tell you both something, Amy said. Something I found in the archives that I didn't want to say in front of the Velari. They gathered around the small table in the shuttle's main compartment. Amy pulled out her notes from the day's research. The silent ones, Amy began. The beings. The Velari drove away thousands of years ago. I found more detailed records about them. She spread her notes on the table. They weren't aliens, Jake. They were human. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. What do you mean? Lisa asked. I mean, they were from Earth, Amy said. The descriptions match perfectly. The silent ones had the same body structure. As us, the same inability to share thoughts, even the same basic technology. The Velari records show images of their ships, and they look like early human exploration vessels. Jake stared at the notes. That's impossible. Humans have only been traveling in space for a few decades. How could we have been here thousands of years ago? I don't think we have, Amy replied. I think the Velari time measurements are different. From ours, what they call thousands of years might only be decades in our time. Lisa was working quickly at her computer, running calculations. If that's true, then the Silent Ones could have been one of the early exploration missions that Earth sent out 30 or 40 years ago. The ones that never came back. The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. You're saying Earth has been sending ships here for years, and the Velari have been destroying them? It would explain why so many deep space missions have disappeared without a trace, Amy said, and why the Velari recognized our technology and language so quickly. We're not their first contact with humans. We're just the latest. Jake stood up and began pacing in the small space. Then they've been lying to us from the beginning. All that talk about being curious about us, about wanting to learn. They knew exactly what we were from the moment we landed. Worse than that, Amy added. I found records of at least 6 different groups of Silent Ones over what they measure as several thousand years. If my calculations are right, that means Earth has been losing ships to the Velari for at least 30 years. Why haven't they just told Earth to stay away? Lisa asked. Because they can't risk it, Amy explained. Their records show that even after they drove away the Silent Ones, their society took centuries to fully recover. They're terrified that if Earth knows about them, more humans will come, more than they can handle. Jake felt anger building in his chest. So they've been murdering human crews to keep their location secret. From their perspective, they're defending their species, Amy said. But yes, that's what they've been doing. A sound outside the shuttle made them all freeze. Footsteps were approaching, but these were not the silent steps of the Velari. Someone was walking heavily, trying to be quiet, but not entirely succeeding. Jake grabbed his sidearm and moved to the shuttle's small window. In the dim light outside, he could see a figure approaching. It was Tiran, the young Velari who had been guiding them during the day. She's alone, Jake whispered. But why would she come here at night? Jake opened the shuttle door carefully. Tiran stood outside, her crystal body glowing much dimmer than usual. She looked frightened. I must speak with you, she said quietly, but we cannot be heard. The council has decided your fate. Jake stepped outside, keeping his weapon ready but not visible. What do you mean? Elder Kiran has convinced the council that you are the same as the Silent Ones of ancient times, Tiran explained. Tomorrow, when the sun rises, they will. Use the sacred spears to end your lives. The sacred spears? Jake asked. Weapons created by our ancestors, specifically to kill beings like you, Tiran said. Beings who cannot be controlled through the mind connection. The spears channel pure psychic energy that destroys the brain of any creature that cannot shield itself with shared consciousness. Jake felt cold fear run through him. Why are you telling us this? Tiran's crystal face showed distress. Because I have been listening to your thoughts during our time together. Not your mind thoughts, which I cannot hear, but your word thoughts. Your spoken ideas. And I do not believe you are evil as the elders claim. Then help us, Jake said. I cannot, Tiran replied sadly. To help you would be to act against the shared will of my people. It would break the connections that make me Velari. But I can tell you this. The sacred spears work by focusing psychic energy through crystal formations. If those crystals were to be damaged or removed, the weapons would not function. With that cryptic hint, Tiran turned and walked quickly back. Toward the city, Leaving Jake standing alone in the alien night, Jake returned to the shuttle and told the others what Tiran had revealed. The news that they were going to be executed at sunrise was terrifying, but it also galvanized them into action. "We need to get out of here," Lisa said, moving toward the pilot's controls. "If we leave now, we might be able to reach orbit before they realize we're gone." "Wait," Kevin said. "The shuttle's power system is still damaged from my accident today. We've got maybe 20% power, enough for basic life support, but not enough to break atmosphere." "How long to fix it?" Jake asked. 6 hours minimum," Kevin replied. "And that's if I can find compatible parts." "We don't have 6 hours," Amy pointed out. "We have maybe 4 hours until sunrise." Jake made a decision. "And we don't run. We fight." "Commander, there are hundreds of them and 4 of us," Lisa protested. "But they're not expecting us to fight," Jake replied. "They think we're like the other human crews they've killed, probably caught by surprise, trying to negotiate or escape. They don't know that we know what they're planning." He looked at each of his crew members. "Tiran gave us a hint about their weapons. If we can neutralize the sacred spears, we might have a chance." "What are you thinking?" Amy asked. "I'm thinking that every species has weaknesses," Jake said. "The Valorie's strength is their shared consciousness, but it's also their weakness. They think as a group, which means they plan as a group. Predictable, organized, but humans don't think like that." Kevin was nodding. "You want to use their expectations against them." "Exactly," Jake said. "They expect us to act like the Silent Ones did, probably trying to reason with them or run away. They're not prepared for humans who fight back smart." Lisa was already pulling up maps of the city on her computer. "If we're going to do this, we need to know where they keep these sacred spears." Amy consulted her notes from the archives. According to the historical records, the sacred spears are kept in the Temple of Harmony at the center of the city. It's where they brought the final group of Silent Ones for execution. "Then that's where we're going," Jake decided. "We destroy their weapons before they can use them." "And then what?" Lisa asked. "Even without the spears, they still outnumber US hundreds to 1. Jake looked out the shuttle window at the glowing crystal city. Somewhere out there, Elder Kiran and the Valari Council were planning to murder him and his crew, just as they had murdered other human crews before them. "Then we do what humans do best," Jake said grimly. "We survive, and we make sure Earth knows what really happened to all those missing ships." Kevin was already gathering tools and equipment. "If we're going to raid an alien temple, we better get started. Those sacred spears won't destroy themselves." As Jake prepared to lead his crew into what might be their final battle, he thought about all the human explorers who had come to this beautiful world before them. Crews who had probably tried to make friends with the Valari, only to be killed for the crime of being human. Tonight, that pattern was going to end. Tonight, the Valari would learn that not all humans were as easy to kill as they thought. Tonight, they would discover that some humans fight back. The Temple of Harmony stood in the center of the crystal city like a giant diamond. It was taller than any other building, its walls glowing with soft light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Jake and his crew crouched behind a low wall about 100 yards away, studying their target. "There," Amy whispered, pointing at a section of the temple where the light was different. "According to the archives, that's where they keep the sacred spears." The temple was guarded, but not heavily. 2 Valari stood at the main entrance, their crystal bodies barely visible in the dim light. The Valari clearly did not expect trouble from 4 humans who were supposed to be sleeping in their shuttle. "Remember the plan," Jake said quietly. "Kevin and I create a distraction at the front. Lisa and Amy go around back and get to the spear storage. Once you destroy the weapons, we all meet at the shuttle." "What if they have other weapons?" Lisa asked. Then we improvise, Jake replied. Humans are good at that. Kevin had jury-rigged several small explosive devices from shuttle components. They were not powerful enough to seriously hurt anyone, but they would make noise and bright lights. Perfect for a distraction. Ready? Jake asked. His crew nodded. Despite their fear, Jake could see determination in their faces. They knew what was at stake. Jake and Kevin moved toward the front of the temple, while Lisa and Amy circled around to the back. The plan was simple, but Jake hoped that simplicity would work in their favor. The Velari expected complex, organized behavior from intelligent species. They might not be prepared for a direct assault. When Jake and Kevin were in position, Jake activated his communicator. Go, he whispered. Kevin threw the first explosive device toward the temple entrance. It landed near the guards and exploded in a shower of sparks and bright light. The two Velari guards stumbled backward, their crystal bodies flaring as they called for help through their psychic connection. More explosives followed, creating chaos and confusion. The guards could not see where the attacks were coming from, because Jake and Kevin kept moving, throwing devices from different positions. Within minutes, dozens of Velari came running toward the temple. But they moved in organized groups, following patterns that Jake could predict. When a group went left, Jake knew where they would search. When they spread out, he knew how they would coordinate. They think like a computer, Kevin said as they dodged another search party. Very efficient, but very predictable. Meanwhile, Lisa and Amy had reached the back of the temple. The rear entrance was unguarded because the Velari had not expected anyone to attack from multiple directions. At once, Amy used her knowledge of Velari architecture to guide them through the temple's interior. The building was filled with glowing corridors and chambers that responded to psychic energy. Since the humans had no such energy, they had to find manual ways to open doors and activate passages. This is taking too long, Lisa said as she struggled with a door that was designed to open with thoughts rather than hands. Here, Amy said, studying the crystal mechanism. The archives showed that these doors have emergency overrides. Physical controls for when the psychic systems fail. She found a small crystal panel and pressed it in a specific pattern she remembered from the historical records. The door opened with a soft chime. They found the sacred spears in a circular chamber. At the heart of the temple, the weapons were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Each spear was made of pure crystal that glowed with internal light. Even being near them made Amy feel dizzy, as if the weapons were trying to affect her mind. How do we destroy them? Lisa asked. Amy pulled out the small hammer that Kevin had given her. The old-fashioned way. She swung the hammer at the first spear. The crystal shattered with a sound like breaking bells, and the glow immediately died. Encouraged, Lisa grabbed another tool and began smashing the remaining weapons, but their success triggered an alarm. The temple's psychic defenses detected the destruction of the sacred spears and sent out a powerful mental scream that every Velari in the city could feel. Outside, Jake watched as every crystal being in sight suddenly stopped what they were doing and turned toward the temple. Their bodies blazed with angry light. Time to go, Jake told Kevin, but as they tried to retreat, Jake realized that the Velari had learned from their previous encounters with humans. Instead of chasing Jake and Kevin directly, they were spreading out to surround the entire area. They were using their shared consciousness to coordinate a trap. They're cutting off our escape routes, Kevin observed. Then we don't retreat, Jake decided. We do something they don't expect. Instead of running away from the temple, Jake led Kevin toward it. The Velari had positioned themselves to catch humans trying to escape, not humans trying to get closer. Inside the temple, Lisa and Amy had finished destroying the sacred spears, but they could hear Velari voices echoing through the corridors. The crystal beings were entering the temple from multiple directions. "We're trapped," Amy said. "Not yet," Lisa replied. She had been studying the temple's structure while they worked. "This place has more exits than just the two we used. Look." She pointed to what looked like a solid wall, but Amy could see faint lines in the crystal that suggested a hidden passage. The archives mentioned emergency exits, Amy realized. Passages that the ancient Valari used during the wars with the Silent Ones. They found the hidden controls and opened the secret passage just as Valari voices grew closer. The passage led down into tunnels beneath the city that Amy recognized from the historical records. These tunnels connect to the old defensive network, Amy explained as they moved through the underground passages. The Valari built them during the chaos of the Silent One wars. Meanwhile, Jake and Kevin had managed to get inside the temple by climbing through a window that the Valari had not thought to guard. They met up with Lisa and Amy in the main chamber where the sacred spears had been stored. "Good work, Jake," sighed, looking at the destroyed weapons. "But now we have a bigger problem." Through the temple windows, they could see the entire city lighting up as thousands of Valari gathered. Their crystal bodies glowed so brightly that the night looked like day. "They're really angry," Kevin observed. "More than angry," Amy said, reading the patterns of light from her studies of Valari communication. "They're afraid. We did something they didn't think was possible." Elder Kiran's voice suddenly echoed through the temple, amplified by psychic energy so that even the humans could hear it clearly. "Silent Ones," the elder's voice called, "you have destroyed the sacred spears, but you have only delayed your fate. There are other ways to deal with creatures of chaos." Jake looked out at the gathering Valari and realized that destroying the spears had been only the first step. The real battle was just beginning. "What other ways?" Lisa asked. Amy consulted her notes from the archives. The records mentioned something called the Unity Song, a psychic technique that the ancient Valari used when the sacred spears failed. "What does it do?" Jake asked. "It creates a psychic storm that affects the brain of any creature within range," Amy explained. "The Valari can protect themselves by linking their minds together, but beings who can't join the link die." Kevin finished. Jake could see the Valari outside, beginning to form a large circle around the temple. They were holding hands and their bodies were pulsing with synchronized light. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "According to the records, the Unity Song takes time to build up power," Amy said. "Maybe 10 minutes. Then we have 10 minutes to get out of range," Jake decided. But as they prepared to leave through the underground tunnels, Elder Kiran appeared in the temple's main doorway. She was not alone. Dozens of Valari surrounded her, their crystal bodies blazing with power. "There is nowhere to run, Silent Ones," Kiran said. "This world belongs to harmony and order. There is no place here for chaos." Jake stepped forward to face the elder. His crew stood behind him, ready to fight or run as needed. "We're not the Silent Ones," Jake said firmly. "We're human, and we're not here to destroy your harmony." "But you do destroy it," Kiran replied, "by simply existing. Your presence creates doubt. Your individual thoughts create conflict. Your unpredictable actions create fear." "Maybe," Jake admitted. "But we also create new possibilities, new solutions, new ways of thinking." Kiran raised her hand, and Jake could see energy beginning to build around her fingers. The other Valari were chanting something in their musical language, adding their power to hers. "Your chaos ends here," Kiran said. Jake looked at the crystal spear in Kiran's other hand. It was not one of the sacred spears they had destroyed, but an older weapon, a personal spear that the elder had carried for centuries. "I'm just human," Jake said quietly. Those simple words seemed to hit Kiran like a physical blow. Her grip tightened on the spear, and Jake could see something like terror in her crystal features. Exactly what we dreaded, she whispered. The spear began to glow with deadly energy as Kieran prepared to strike. But Jake was already moving, doing what humans do best when faced with impossible odds. He was adapting. Jake dove to the side as Elder Kieran's spear shot a beam of deadly energy where he had been standing. The crystal wall behind him cracked and shattered from the force of the attack. "Run!" Jake shouted to his crew. They scattered in different directions, using the broken temple architecture as cover. But Jake could see that the Velari outside were completing their circle. The Unity Song was building power, and the air itself was beginning to vibrate with psychic energy. "Amy," Jake called out, "how do we stop the Unity Song?" "The archive said it needs perfect harmony to work," Amy replied from behind a fallen crystal pillar. "If the connection is broken, the song fails." "Then we break the connection," Jake decided. But how could 4 humans disrupt a psychic link between thousands of Velari? Jake's mind raced through possibilities as he dodged another energy blast from Kieran's spear. Then he remembered something Kevin had said about the accident with the water device. Human technology and Velari systems were incompatible. They created feedback loops that damaged both systems. "Kevin," Jake shouted, "can you overload their psychic network with our equipment?" "Maybe," Kevin called back, "but I'd need to get to our shuttle's power core." "The tunnel system," Lisa suggested. "Amy said it connects to the old defensive network. Maybe it reaches our landing site." Amy was already moving toward the secret passage they had used earlier. This way. The tunnel maps showed connections all over the city. The 4 humans raced through the underground passages while above them, the Unity Song grew stronger. Jake could feel pressure building in his head, like the beginning of a terrible headache. The psychic energy was affecting them even through the rock and crystal. "It's getting worse," Lisa said, holding her head. "Keep moving," Jake urged. "We can't let them complete the song." They followed the tunnel network through the city's underground. Amy guided them using her knowledge from the archives, leading them toward where their shuttle was parked. But the tunnels were old, and some passages had collapsed over the centuries. "Dead end," Kevin announced as they reached a wall of fallen stone. "There has to be another way," Amy said, consulting the tunnel maps she had memorized. The defensive network was designed to have multiple routes to every location. Above them, they could hear the Velari chanting. The sound echoed through the tunnels, growing louder and more powerful. Jake realized they were running out of time. "Wait," Lisa said. "I hear something else." She was right. Mixed in with the Velari chanting was another sound. Water rushing underground. The city's water system, Amy realized. It uses the same tunnel network as the old defenses. They followed the sound of water and found a large pipe that carried fresh water from the mountains to the city. The pipe was big enough for a person to crawl through, and it led in the direction of their shuttle. "This is crazy," Kevin said as he looked at the dark, wet pipe. "Crazy works," Jake replied. "Crazy is what they don't expect." They crawled through the water pipe for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Behind them, the Unity Song was reaching its peak. Jake could feel his thoughts becoming fuzzy as the psychic energy tried to overwhelm his mind. Finally, they emerged from a water outlet near their shuttle, but the landing site was not empty. Dozens of Velari surrounded the shuttle, their bodies glowing as they participated in the Unity Song from a distance. "Now what?" Lisa whispered. Jake studied the situation. The Velari were focused on their chanting, adding their mental energy to the growing psychic storm. They were not expecting an attack from humans who should have been trapped in the temple. Same plan as before, Jake decided. Distraction and chaos. "We don't have any more explosives," Kevin pointed out. "We don't need explosives," Jake said. We have something better. We have human unpredictability. Jake picked up a rock and threw it at one of the chanting Velari. The stone bounced harmlessly off the crystal being's shoulder, but it broke the Velari's concentration. The disruption rippled through the psychic network like a stone thrown into calm water. Again, Jake ordered. All 4 humans began throwing rocks, making noise, and generally creating chaos around the edge of the Velari circle. Each disruption broke someone's concentration, and each broken connection weakened the unity song. The Velari tried to maintain their focus, but they were not prepared for random, unpredictable interference. Their harmony required perfect coordination, and the humans were introducing pure chaos into their system. It's working, Amy shouted as she saw several Velari stagger and break their hand. Kevin reached the shuttle and began working frantically to restore power to their systems. I need 2 more minutes, he called out, but Elder Kiran had arrived at the landing site, her crystal spear blazing with energy. Behind her came more Velari warriors, abandoning the unity song to deal with the human threat directly. Your chaos ends now, Kiran declared, raising her spear to strike at Jake. But as she attacked, the ground beneath them began to shake. The disruption of the unity song had done more than just stop the psychic weapon. It had destabilized something much larger. Earthquake. Lisa shouted Dot, but Amy was reading the situation differently. Not earthquake. The psychic network is collapsing. The unity song was connected to the planet's natural energy systems. When we broke it, we damaged the whole network. The crystal city was beginning to crack. Buildings that had stood for thousands of years were developing fissures as the psychic energy that held them together failed. The Velari were crying out in alarm, their perfect harmony replaced by fear and confusion. My people, Kiran said, her anger forgotten as she watched her civilization beginning to crumble. Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of running to the shuttle, he ran toward the collapsing city. Jake, what are you doing? Lisa called. What humans do, Jake replied. We help. He reached a group of Velari who were trapped under fallen crystal debris. Without hesitation, Jake began moving the heavy pieces, using his human strength and determination to free the trapped beings. Kevin saw what Jake was doing and abandoned his work on the shuttle to help. Soon Lisa and Amy were also working to rescue trapped Velari from the collapsing buildings. The crystal beings watched in amazement as the humans they had tried to kill now risked their own lives to save Velari civilians. Why? Kiran asked as Jake helped pull her injured assistant from under a fallen wall. Because it's the right thing to do, Jake replied simply. But we tried to murder you. We have murdered others of your kind. Jake looked at the elder while he continued working to clear debris. Yes, you have. And that was wrong. But letting people die when we can help them would also be wrong. This makes no sense, Kiran said. Your individual thinking should make you selfish. Your chaos should make you destructive. Sometimes it does, Jake admitted, but it also makes us adaptable. It makes us able to change our minds when we see new situations. Dr. Carter, who was using her medical knowledge to treat injured Velari, looked up from her work. Elder Kiran, may I show you something? Amy led the elder to a section of the city where human and Velari were working together to shore up a damaged building. Humans were providing physical strength and creative problem-solving, while Velari provided psychic energy and technical knowledge. Look at what we can accomplish together, Amy said. Your harmony and our chaos. Your order and our adaptability. Neither is complete without the other. As they worked side by side, something unexpected happened. The psychic network began to stabilize. Not in the same way as before, but in a new pattern that included the human's chaotic influence. It's like music, observed Tiran. A young Velari who had warned them about the execution. Your individual thoughts are like instruments playing different melodies. They don't match our harmony, but they create something new, something richer. Elder. Kiran watched as humans and Velari continued working together to save the city. Slowly, her crystal features showed something that might have been understanding. The prophecies spoke of chaos bringing destruction, she said quietly. But perhaps we interpreted them wrong. Perhaps chaos brings change, and change can be growth as well as destruction. Over the following days, Jake and his crew helped the Velari repair their damaged city. The humans' practical engineering, combined with Velari psychic technology, created new solutions that neither species could have developed alone. When it came time for the Aurora to leave, Elder Kiran came to see them off. "We will not try to stop other humans from coming here," she said. "But we ask that they come slowly and with respect for our ways." "I think Earth will agree to that," Jake replied. "We're good at learning from our mistakes, and we must learn to accept that not all change is dangerous," Kiran admitted. "Your chaos taught us that our perfect order was also perfect stagnation." As the Aurora lifted off from the crystal world, Jake looked back at the city below. Velari and humans were working together in the gardens, repairing the damage and building new structures that combine both approaches to life. "Think they'll be okay?" Lisa asked. "They'll be better than okay," Jake said. "They'll be different. And sometimes, different is exactly what the universe needs." The journey back to Earth would take months, but Jake was no longer worried about what they would find when they got there.